Welcome back to the channel. Today we will explore a shocking revelation from music legend Diana Ross. At the age of 81, she spoke for the first time, telling the truth behind her special and mysterious relationship with the king of pop, Michael Jackson. These sincere and emotional shares not only surprised fans, but also revealed many unknown aspects of the deep friendship between the two world music icons. Don't take your eyes off the screen. The truth is about to be revealed. Everyone has heard of the relationship between Diana Ross and Michael Jackson, but do you think it was just friendship, or was it more? If you ever suspected something was up, comment 1, and if you thought they were just friends, comment 0. Don't forget to subscribe to support the channel. There are many behind-the-scenes secrets waiting for you to discover behind the spotlight. He started his career at a very young age, and I had the opportunity to introduce them on their first television show. But there was a truth that Diana Ross kept secret for more than 50 years. Their relationship was more than just friendship. It was complex and haunting to the point that even those closest to Michael Jackson dared only whisper in the dark. Diana Ross was his mother, his sister, and there were many things that Michael could not or would not say. It was this ambiguity that dominated their lives for nearly half a century. They shared an apartment together during filming something that few people knew about. Michael Jackson did not attend Diana Ross's wedding, an action that surprised many people. However, in his last will, Michael mentioned Diana right after his biological mother. Those actions seemed silent, but were extremely profound and meaningful. For many years, no one dared to clearly mention this relationship until Diana Ross decided to break the silence at the age of 81. This was not a simple love story, but the biggest secret that Michael carried with him until the end of his life. Now layers of mystery are being revealed as if Diana was too tired of keeping everything secret. Not everyone knows that the first time Michael Jackson met Diana Ross was at a Motown event when he was only 9 years old. A small boy with a confused look in his eyes stood still in the middle of a crowd of adults full of scrutinizing and expecting looks. He didn't say much, just stood near his brothers in the Jackson 5 group, his hands shaking but trying to stay calm. In the middle of that crowd, Diana Ross approached, bent down, and called him "honey" with affection. That moment began a relationship that lasted a lifetime. Diana Ross at that time was no longer a rising star, but the queen of Motown, a symbol of strength and perfection. Diana Ross always knows how to behave and answer every question as if she had prepared it. She is a model of confidence, beauty, and power in the music industry. The special relationship between the two has surpassed many normal limits, making people curious but never clearly explained. That connection is not only limited to music, but also a deep part of their private lives. Now, when Diana decided to tell the truth, fans have the opportunity to understand more about this special relationship. Let's follow to discover the secret behind two world music legends. She had everything Michael never thought he would have the permission to shine naturally. When Diana looked at him, her eyes were like no other, without pity or reserve, just gentleness and deep understanding. From that moment on, Michael was attached to her in a way that was hard to describe in words. Later, he summed up the feeling in one sentence: mother, sister, and lover all rolled into one. It was a strange feeling, completely different from ordinary relationships. It was not maternal love, nor was it exactly idol or fan love. Instead, Michael found in her a place to breathe in a world full of pressure that demanded he be someone else. Diana gave him the feeling of being himself without having to pretend or hide anything. She was not just the spotlight, but the only person who pulled him out of the shadows without any reason. In 1971, when the show Diana aired, the whole of America saw Michael standing next to her on stage. He performed naturally as if the spotlight had belonged to him since birth. But few people knew that it was Diana who taught him every step, from how to smile to how to keep his voice from shaking in front of the camera. She never forced him, but gently reminded him, patiently waiting for Michael to grow up little by little. That was the first time he really shone, not because of his technique or natural talent, but because someone believed he could do it. The feelings between them were never officially named because invisible boundaries always existed. A poor black boy and a woman who had become a legend, that gap was much larger than age or status. However, the connection between them was so strong that many people were curious but did not dare to question it. It was that ambiguity that created a deep, strong connection that lasted for many years. Diana Ross was not only a guide in Michael's career, but also an invaluable spiritual support. She gave him a security that he had never had before. That helped Michael become more confident and steady on his challenging musical path. Their relationship also reflected the dark corners of life and the loneliness of big stars. When Diana decided to speak the truth, it was not only a personal sharing, but also a testament to feelings that transcended all conventional definitions. And now fans have a better understanding of the real Michael Jackson alongside the shadow of Diana Ross. They knew that if they crossed the line, everything would fall apart. So they both kept quiet, said nothing, and continued to move in their own orbits. However, they always had a place in their hearts for each other. Michael may have never actually called her mom, but every look he gave her spoke volumes. And as he grew up becoming a global icon, people still saw a little bit of Diana Ross in the way he stood, the way he spoke, as if she had not only taught him how to sing, but also how to be a human being in the spotlight. After all, some people come together not by fate, but by timing. And for Michael, meeting Diana Ross at age 9 was probably one of the first things that saved his soul from the lingering loneliness that would follow. In 1978, when Michael agreed to star in The Wiz, a modern adaptation of The Wizard of Oz, with an all-black cast, many thought it was just a career turning point. But for Michael, it was the first time he was with Diana Ross. Not just a few hours of visiting, not just backstage at a few shows, but day after day in the same project, living the same rhythm. Diana played Dorothy, while Michael transformed into Scarecrow, an innocent, pure character who always wanted to learn how to think, just like he was in real life at that time. What do you think when Diana Ross only revealed the truth about Michael Jackson at the age of 81? If you believe she kept quiet to protect him, comment number 2. But if you think this is the time she wants to say it all, comment number 5. Don't forget to leave a like and a sub to support the channel and discover more fascinating behind-the-scenes stories. Michael had just turned 20, no longer the Motown prodigy, but not quite a man either. He struggled with his image, with the deep emotions he had never dared to express. The Wiz was a commercial failure, criticized for trying too hard to be special. But that didn't matter to Michael and Diana. The rare private time together was the most precious thing. They had been quietly drawing closer for nearly a decade, never crossing the line. For the first time, Michael could sit down to dinner with Diana without having to rush or avoid the manager's gaze. One detail that made many people in the film crew whisper was that Michael invited Diana to stay overnight at the apartment he rented during the filming. No hotel, no film crew, just the two of them. No one said what happened. Diana did not explain, Michael did not repeat it, but the incident made the assistants whisper in the dressing room. That intimacy surprised everyone. Not because there was anything wrong with it, but because it was so intimate compared to what one would expect from a celebrity. Diana remained quiet, not defending herself or taking advantage of the attention. After the whiz, Michael changed dramatically, more thoughtful and smiling less for the cameras. But there was a serenity in his eyes, as if he were closer to what he had always dreamed of. It wasn't romantic love, but acceptance and permission to be himself. He could be vulnerable to be close without fear of judgment. In the film, they performed two songs together, Ease On Down the Road and Brand New Day. The melody is cheerful, the lyrics hopeful. But those who pay attention will notice an invisible connection between each note. They don't act, they don't pretend, they just connect with unguarded eyes. The Whiz was a commercial failure, but for Michael and Diana, it was a quiet victory. A victory of sincerity and deep affection. The most beautiful things sometimes come from the moments that are not praised or applauded. It was those quiet nights of filming in that small apartment where only they knew what really happened that created the sacred connection between the two. Their relationship was not a public story, but a private thing without promises or rings. Just a nod, a moment together without fear of gossip. They found safety in each other in a world full of lights and pressure. That is what made their feelings special and unforgettable. That relationship went beyond what the public saw like a carefully guarded secret for many years. Diana Ross was not only the person who guided Michael's career, but also the person who brought him peace of mind. The bond between them was not something that could be explained in words or measured by success. It was a complete understanding and acceptance, a solid spiritual support for Michael on a difficult journey. When the stage lights went out, it was just them and those quiet moments. And that was also the little-known story that had the greatest influence in their lives. And for Michael, that was enough. Michael Jackson is remembered for his dazzling halo, his gravity-defying dance moves, and his eyes that sparkled behind elaborate makeup. But just once, he let that mask fall. Not on stage, not in a song, but in an interview where he said what many thought was just a rumor, a figment of the imagination of overzealous fans. In 1982, Michael Jackson, already an international star, but not yet in his Thriller heyday, was interviewed by Ebony magazine. In the studio, amid the flashbulbs and polite laughter, the air suddenly became quiet. Michael trembled but spoke clearly, warmly, "That's Diana Ross. I love her." His voice was firm without beating around the bush, without hidden meanings. His smile at that moment was not for the public, but as an admission to himself. This was the first time Michael dared to confess something he had kept secret since he was a child. He shared that some people would not take him seriously for saying this, but he did not care. Michael's words were not just a simple confession of love, but also a firm declaration in a world full of prejudice. At the time, Michael was in his early 20s, while Diana Ross was 40, a significant and challenging age gap in the eyes of society. However, he did not let that affect his heart. He wanted the whole of America to know that if he had the choice, he would marry Diana immediately without hesitation. This was especially true in the context of prejudice and racism at that time. It is not easy for a black man to openly express his deep feelings for a diva who is almost 2 decades older than him. Diana Ross, the icon of beauty and power, is someone that few people dare to mention in this way. But Michael did it gently but firmly, as if everything in his world was possible with her by his side. For him, it did not need social acceptance, just genuine feelings and daring to speak the truth in his heart. Maybe for many people it was just a passing sentence in an old interview. But for Michael, it was something that could not be hidden forever. When the interview was released, some people were shocked, while others thought Michael was exaggerating. But if you listen closely, you will see that he did not say it to shock or create public opinion. He said it because it had been in his heart for so long and finally needed to be called for what it was. It was a sincere and courageous confession from a young man in love with an important woman in his life. Michael was not afraid to face prejudice to protect that feeling. And it was that moment that left a deep mark in the hearts of fans and in music history. But perhaps what saddened him most was that his words were not believed to be true, as if his love, no matter how real, was never taken seriously. But he said it anyway, because some things once said are enough to live forever and in Michael's heart. Perhaps it was his bravest moment, not when performing in front of millions, but when he sat alone in front of a camera and dared to say that he loved someone with everything he still held inside. It wasn't the stage lights, the cheers from thousands of fans, or the chart-topping records that silenced Michael Jackson that night. It was a wedding invitation, a simple white card sent from a villa somewhere in Europe, sender's name Diana Ross, groom's name Arne Næss Jr. In the mid-1980s, when Diana decided to remarry a Norwegian businessman, the world seemed to explode with congratulations. But Michael, he kept quiet. Michael did not attend the wedding of the woman he had publicly declared his love for in the press. He quietly avoided her without any reaction or congratulations. Relatives said he could not hide the deep pain in his heart. There were no more comfortable smiles, just empty days avoiding mentioning her name. The music was also silent. Life seemed to lose its vitality. Each passing day was a moment of silence in his heart. When asked why he didn't attend the wedding, Michael replied simply and firmly, "I love her and always will." No one dared to ask more. To the outside world, he was the king of pop, a symbol of perfection and success. But in that moment, he was just a young man sitting in front of the wedding invitation of the only girl in his heart, knowing that from now on she would call someone else her husband. That silent suffering was invisible to anyone, but it gnawed at him every minute. Unrequited love was the deepest and quietest pain in Michael's life. It didn't need noise or drama to exist. Every song unwritten, every lyric unsung contained that loss. His eyes, though silent, revealed everything. Even though she belonged to the world, to millions of fans, he kept her to himself. The person he loved never belonged to him, but that feeling never faded. A friend revealed that after Diana's wedding, Michael withdrew from activities for a while. Outsiders thought he just needed a break, but in fact, it was his way of healing his heart. No one blamed Diana. She had the right to choose her own happiness. In a small corner of his soul, Michael was still the boy standing behind the stage. He looked up at the place where the lights were shining on her, not daring to come closer. That unrequited love still burned silently within him. The most painful thing is not that she married someone else, but that the love is still intact, never fading. Michael kept a silent love without demands, without blame. A feeling that only the person involved could understand. Music became the place where he hid the things he dared not say. Those pains and feelings that had never been named were sent into each hit that became famous worldwide. Music was his deepest heart. Michael once said that music was the bridge between him and the outside world. Through music, he conveyed emotions and stories that words could not fully express. His unrequited love for Diana was a part of it, although not made public but always present in every melody. It was a testament to a man's sincere and courageous heart, a love that, although unrequited, still retained its value and profound meaning. And that is also one of the little-known secrets about Michael Jackson's life. Two songs have been whispered and speculated about for years, Dirty Diana and Remember the Time. One is full of fiery anger, the other is as gentle as a memory. Two seemingly opposite tones, but both evoke the same name, Diana. Maybe he denied it. Maybe he said Dirty Diana is about a certain type of person, ambitious women who cling to the limelight waiting for their chance to break into an artist's life. But what happened next raised eyebrows because the day Michael first copyrighted Dirty Diana coincided exactly with the day Diana Ross married Arnie Ness Jr., a coincidence too perfect to be coincidental. And remember the time. His brother Jermaine Jackson wasn't subtle. Michael wrote it for Diana, he said bluntly. A song that isn't as technically complex as some of the other hits, but there's something about it that keeps people listening to it over and over again because it evokes a very specific feeling, something beautiful that happened but can never come back. In the music video for Remember the Time, Michael plays a man of desire in a royal palace where the woman is too powerful, too far away to reach. A strange juxtaposition if one remembers that in Michael's heart, Diana was mother, sister, and lover all in one, both intimate and untouchable, both tender and unattainable to him. Michael never really made it clear. He left things ambiguous as he often did with his private stories. But if you look deep into his eyes during the performances of Dirty Diana, where the emotions are suppressed uncontrollably, you will see something more than the music, something like anger. But it is the kind of anger of a one-sided lover watching the other person walk away to someone else without looking back. And Remember the Time feels like a gentle whisper without resentment. Just, do you remember, doesn't need an answer, just a way to hold on to a piece of the past even when no one is listening. Maybe Michael never wanted anyone to know. Maybe he thought if he kept quiet, those songs would live their own lives unlabeled, undisturbed. But people aren't naive. They listen, they see, and eventually they understand that sometimes love doesn't need to be said in words. It just needs to ring through the drums, through the singing. And only those who truly love can hear what's between the notes. So Dirty Diana could be about anyone. But for Michael, it was probably always about someone he never had and never forgot. Not the songs, not the stage, not the carefully staged interviews, but the private, unscripted recordings that truly revealed Michael Jackson's truest feelings. In a series of leaked tapes from the early 1990s, Michael confided in a friend named Glenda about a relationship he had kept secret. And in a moment of being caught off guard, he blurted out what everyone had wondered but never dared to be sure of. It was unrequited love. Our relationship was only in my mind. A simple sentence, but it touched the hearts of the listeners. All his life he stood in the spotlight. All his life millions of fans called him a star. But in the end, he was the one who quietly loved someone who didn't love him back. A feeling that had simmered for years from when he was a boy, first led by her until he became a global icon, and it was still known to him. However, some people deny it. Some fans claim that Michael confirmed that he loved her romantically. I don't know about Diana. Some people claim, others doubt. But the important thing is not whether Diana knew or not. It's how long Michael kept that feeling, because you don't keep something in your heart forever if it's only fleeting. And then there was another comment. Not loud, not harsh, but it made everyone stop. Another reason I laugh when people say he doesn't like women, he has a shrine behind her in Neverland. A small room not on public tour, nor designed to be shown to anyone. It was just a private corner where Michael hung pictures of Diana and kept small mementos related to her. A quiet, sacred space in the noisy world he owned. Even though he had the whole world at his feet, he still needed such a place to continue loving hopelessly. That unrequited love was not a burden, but gradually became an inseparable part of him. That room was as quiet as his heart, always containing secrets that only he knew. Unrequited love was initially a private feeling, but gradually became a habit, and then became Michael's identity. He did not try to make her realize it, nor did he try to change anything. That feeling was kept in peace, like that small room full of memories. Among the hundreds of rumors about Michael's private life, some were true, some were false, but the truth was that he loved someone who did not belong to him. The most painful thing was realizing that, but not being able to stop loving. This is not a story of fighting, but of quiet acceptance. Not all legends are written in triumph and glory. Some, like Michael Jackson, are shaped by the things that never happened, but still cherished as the most precious treasures of life. People say Michael lived in a different world, but when you look at his will, you see that his heart never left reality. That quiet, deep love was the most real and human part of Michael. It was not just a memory, but a part of his soul, and it was the last secret he kept for the rest of his life. And there, amid the legalese and the dry numbers, was a name that gave many people pause. Diana Ross. It was not a coincidence. It was not a courtesy. It was not a name added for the sake of formality. Michael had made it clear that if his mother, Katherine Jackson, could not care for his 3 children, Diana would be next on the list, not his sister, not his best friend, not some distant relative, but Diana, the woman he had called mother, sister, and lover, all rolled into one. This is no longer an artist-for-artist relationship or an old relationship between 2 former stars. This is family. Michael would not entrust his children to anyone other than those he truly trusted. And that says it all. When you choose someone to entrust your children's lives to if you are no longer around, you are saying the most important thing without saying a word. This is a watershed act. It was not only a testament to Michael's deep affection for Diana, but also to her important role in his life. Diana was not just his first love or someone he secretly loved from afar. She was a sacred part of the smallest circle that Michael called family. Diana's silence when she knew this made that affection even more mysterious and meaningful. They existed in a private space, without explanation, without exaggeration. Outsiders found it difficult to understand that deep connection. One might wonder why Michael, who was reserved and skeptical, could have such faith in someone who was not his own blood. In fact, there was only one person he felt safe calling family outside of his own blood, and that was Diana. That affection did not need to be confirmed by marriage or vows. It was expressed through simple but meaningful gestures, like naming her in a legal document. It was Michael's way of saying, "I trust you more than I trust myself." Even though he was gone, Diana's mark on his heart remained. Michael Jackson captivated the world with his legendary moonwalk and signature voice. But before he became a legend, he was just a little boy who admired Diana Ross. She was not only his idol but also his mentor and creative role model. Michael admitted to copying her every gesture and every signature ooh sound. The 9-year-old boy standing next to Diana during rehearsals was an eager audience member, learning how to command the stage with confidence and charisma. Diana didn't have to teach Michael how to shine. Just by existing and showing confidence, she inspired the young Michael. The boy's curiosity, admiration, and passion permeated every step and every movement he made on stage. It was the source of the artistic DNA that Michael carried throughout his career. He not only sang, but performed with a grateful soul for the person who guided him. Michael himself openly admitted this with pride and sincerity. That love and admiration did not stop at the stage lights. It built a solid foundation for Michael Jackson as a person and artist. Diana was the first light that illuminated his artistic soul, helping him understand the power of presence and how to connect with the audience. In interviews, Michael shared that Diana was an endless source of inspiration for him. This was clearly shown through his performance style and unmistakable confidence on stage. That affection was a priceless gift that Diana gave Michael throughout his life. And finally, it can be said that the connection between Michael Jackson and Diana Ross goes beyond the limits of ordinary love. It is a connection of souls, a deep understanding and trust. Michael once called Diana mother, sister, and lover in a single sentence that contains a lifetime. That relationship does not need explanation or recognition from the outside. It exists forever in their hearts, a sacred part of their artistic and life journey. And that is the secret that Diana Ross finally shared with the world when she turned 81. But with Diana, Michael called her name because she influenced not only his performance, but also how he defined himself. Consider Michael's early fashion sense, the glittering suits, the sharp tailoring, the mysterious glint in his eyes, all reminiscent of Diana at her Motown best. It was no coincidence, it was a continuation, as if he were continuing the story she left behind, but with his own material, with his own body. And through that influence, Michael became not a clone, but a new chapter. One that took Diana's diva energy, then mixed it with the boldness, the strangeness, and sometimes the deep loneliness that was uniquely Michael. The ooh he uttered to millions of fans who knew it had echoed in the boy's head the first time he saw her sing. The way he turned his back to the audience, then slowly turned his head. Perhaps it was precisely this gesture that he had memorized from his early days on tour with her. True influence need not be so obvious. It lies in the seemingly small things that touch the deepest part of a person. Diana planted a seed, and Michael let that seed grow in the spotlight for the rest of his life, not as a debt, but as a silent but ever-resonating gratitude. The 81-year-old woman is not often seen in public. Quiet, private, sometimes just a glimpse out the window in a snapshot. But lately, relatives say she has begun to talk more. Not to tell grand stories, not to reminisce about past glories, but to unburden herself. She spoke on a damp afternoon, her hair streaked with gray, her hands no longer as steady as before. Her voice was even not trying to be dramatic. But the listeners held their breath. Michael loves me in a way that can't be described. The sentence seemed to float in the air, and yet it made the room suddenly feel very small, very real. Someone laughed awkwardly, thinking she was joking, but she looked straight at them, shaking her head. It wasn't a passing thing, it wasn't a passing infatuation. It was true love. No embellishments, no tears, no quotes, just the words of an old man old enough to have no need to prove anything anymore. Mother, sister, and lover, it wasn't a casual remark. She sighed. I heard him say it the first time he said it, and he never said anything else. It was speculated, but she never confirmed it. For decades, she kept her distance enough to not hurt Michael, but enough to not cross any lines. She knew what she was in his eyes. She had watched that admiration grow over the years from the eyes of a Detroit boy to the man at the top of the music world. And it was that truth that prevented her from returning Michael's feelings, not because she didn't care, but because she understood the fragility of love mixed with admiration. He gave me a kind of love that I wasn't sure I could handle, Diana once said, not dramatically, but very honestly. She knew Michael's feelings were serious, so she didn't dare break them. When asked if she had ever loved him, she just silently looked at her cold cup of tea. I cared about him very much. But to love him like he loved me, I couldn't dare lie. That alone was enough to understand the depth of that feeling and needed no further explanation. Some things don't need to be made public because they are so deeply ingrained in both of their memories. The most painful thing is not that the love was not reciprocated, but that it existed in silence untouched. No one knows for sure what really happened between Michael and Diana. There are no photos of them kissing, no public moments holding hands. Everything is fragmentary, an interview remark, a fleeting glance, a clause in a will that many consider a formality. But when pieced together, the story emerges more clearly than ever. Michael once called Diana his mother, sister, and lover. But not three different people, but only one person. The person who appeared in his life since he was 9 years old, standing trembling under the spotlight. Diana was the first person to believe in him, put her hand on his shoulder and said, "Just sing, you can do it." For Michael, her presence was not only affection, but also a solid foundation that shaped the person he would become. In 1982, he publicly said, "That's Diana Ross. I love her." It was not a joke, but the truth from the bottom of his heart. When Diana got married, Michael didn't attend the wedding. He didn't send his blessing, he didn't smile, he just quietly withdrew as if a part of him had been taken away. A close friend said he couldn't hide his haggard face when he heard the news. Not out of jealousy or anger, but a deep sense of loss that only those who have unrequited love can understand. Years later, the copyright registration of the song Dirty Diana was discovered to coincide with Diana's wedding. It may have been a coincidence, but in Michael's world, few things are random. Michael's will surprised many when he chose Diana Ross as the guardian of his 3 children if his mother was no longer able to care for them. A signature, a name, a position not simply out of affection, but out of absolute trust. In conversations with Glenda, Michael once admitted that it was unrequited love. But those close to him also confirmed that he loved Diana romantically. A witness who had been to Neverland recalled the small room where Michael placed Diana's photos, softly lit. It was a private place of worship without ostentation or explanation. We don't need Michael and Diana to publicly declare their love. No need for a filmed kiss or a lavish wedding. For Michael, that love was complete enough when kept in the heart. As for Diana, perhaps the silence for many years was not because she didn't love, but because that love was too real, too fragile to be exposed to the public spotlight. There are pieces of the story that never find their perfect place until both of them leave this world. But when we look back, we still see an eternal love. The love between Michael and Diana was filled with admiration, inner conflict, and silence. It was expressed in the smallest of actions, from the look on stage to the name in the will, from the whispers in interviews to the secret room at Neverland. All were silent punctuations of a love that needed no name. They may not have had a full-blown romantic relationship, but their love was real and deep. It is a story that has never been told in words. Michael Jackson was fascinated by Diana, not only as an idol, but also as a mentor to his artistic soul. He learned every step, every gesture, and even how to embrace the spotlight from her. From the age of 9-10, standing next to her during rehearsals, Michael not only learned to sing, but also learned how to master the stage. Diana's presence was enough to inspire that boy with curious eyes. All of this became his artistic DNA. He did not hide his pride when talking about her influence. Their love did not need to be validated by anyone but themselves. It was not a story of showing off or making a public statement. It was a deep, sacred, and lasting spiritual connection. Michael devoted his entire life to keeping that feeling, even though he could not possess it. Diana also chose to remain silent, knowing that such a love was difficult to display. Their story is a testament to the power of unrequited love, full of respect and deep sincerity. Thank you for watching until the end of the video. The story that Diana Ross shared is not only a tribute to Michael Jackson, but also a testament to a strong friendship that transcends the spotlight and time. If you find this story meaningful, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the next videos. Welcome to our channel. Today we will explore the shocking mystery of Michael Jackson. I faked everything, and now I'm going to reveal why. What was behind the moonwalk music and mysterious life of the King of Pop? Get ready. The legendary Michael Jackson, the King of Pop, seems to be back with a shocking revelation. I faked everything. And now I'm going to tell the world why. Were his iconic dance moves, his timeless songs, or his entire life just an elaborate drama? Join us as we uncover the untold secrets and discover the truth behind this shocking story. Do you think that Michael Jackson could have really hidden a big secret, like faking everything during his career? If you believe this is possible, leave the number 1 in the comment section. If you think this is just a fictional story, comment the number 0. Please support us by clicking like and subscribing to the channel so you don't miss the next interesting content. Thank you. He came from a small house on Jackson Street in Gary, Indiana. It was a cramped life with 10 children, a steelworker father who didn't know how to be gentle, and a mother who tried her best to keep the family together. Of all the children, the young artist stood out. Off stage, he was shy, almost wanting to disappear. But once he was in the spotlight, he transformed into a completely different person. It was magical. Everyone knew they were witnessing something rare, even at the age of 6. The home was not a place for fun or entertainment. It was a place for survival through music. Joseph's father cared only about results. Practice was not optional, nor was it fun. It was brutal sometimes, long until their legs ached and their voices died. For the youngest of kids, mistakes were unacceptable. Joseph's relentless approach ensured that. But even with all the pressure, the youngster's talent shone through, and before long, the Jackson 5 had moved from local talent shows to signing with Motown Records. That was the beginning of it all. In 1969, the Jackson 5 exploded onto the music scene. Their first single, I Want You Back, was an instant hit. His voice had a depth and vulnerability that belied his 11 years. And on stage, he didn't just sing. He had a presence that couldn't be ignored. It was all instinct, not just practiced moves. Songs like ABC and I'll Be There made the Jackson 5 a household name. But even then, it was clear that the youngest member was something special. The spotlight was slowly shifting from the group to him. His brother seemed pleased with the group's success, but not the performer. Fame wasn't enough. He wanted more. By 1971, he was releasing solo material, and by 1979, he released Off the Wall. That album was a game changer. Songs like Don't Stop Till You Get Enough and Rock With You were fresh, energetic, and completely his own. It was the first time he stepped out of his brother's shadow, showing the world that he wasn't just another pop star. He was something else entirely. Then came Thriller. If Off the Wall was a spark, then Thriller was an unstoppable fire. Released in 1982, it was not only a hit, it broke records. Songs like Billie Jean and Beat It became cultural milestones. And the thrilling music video was something the world had never seen before. It was 13 minutes of zombies, horror, and iconic dance moves. MTV played it constantly, and everyone was hooked. In 1983, the entertainer introduced the world to the moonwalk when he performed Billie Jean at the Motown 25th anniversary show. It was one of those jaw-dropping moments. He glided across the stage upside down, seemingly defying gravity. That performance sealed his fate as a global icon. By the mid-'80s, he was on top of the world, selling out stadiums, dominating the charts, and turning every music video into a major event. But behind the glitz and the cheers of the fans, things began to fall apart. The fame he had earned came at a cost, and the cracks were showing. By the mid-'80s, the artist seemed to have it all. He was the most recognizable face in the world, with millions of albums sold and fans who worshipped him. But who was he really? Fame made him larger than life, but it also trapped him. Behind the strict Jackson family upbringing, he was never allowed to be anything more than a child. His father, Joseph, didn't want children. He wanted performers, and he was shaped to fit that role perfectly. As his solo career took off, the pressure only increased. His every move was scrutinized. His relationships, his gestures, even his appearance were debated by the public. By the late 1970s, people were noticing changes in his appearance. His skin was lighter, his nose was slimmer, his jawline was sharper. Rumors began to circulate. It could be just a few surgeries, or it could be something more. By the mid-1980s, those whispers had turned into a roar. He claimed to have vitiligo, a condition that causes patches of skin to lose their color. Medical reports later confirmed this, but the media didn't care. They reported on his skin bleaching, on his desire to change who he was. The entertainer remained private, rarely speaking out, and the silence only fueled the rumors. Some see him as a man struggling with his identity, while others defend him fiercely. It's not just his skin. Over the years, his face seems to have changed completely. It's not just plastic surgery. It's like he's trying to become someone else. Each change makes him more mysterious, and the world can't stop trying to figure out who he really is. Do you think Michael Jackson might have intentionally created rumors and mysteries around his life to protect a larger truth? If you believe the King of Pop was cleverly hiding something, leave a 2 in the comments. If you think it's all just coincidence or artistic creation, leave a 5. Watch the video to find out more, hit like, and subscribe to the channel to support us. For him, the scrutiny was stifling. He once spoke of looking in the mirror and not recognizing himself. He donned gloves, fedoras, and sequined jackets like armor, trying to shield himself from a harsh world that demanded perfection. As Michael's fame grew, the pressure and loneliness only deepened. Neverland, a dream turned nightmare. Fame and scrutiny isolated Michael Jackson even more. Even those closest to him seemed to have their own agendas. Friends became opportunists, and the pop icon retreated into his own world. He built Neverland Ranch, a sprawling estate that was supposed to be his hideout. There were amusement rides, zoo animals, and everything he thought might bring back the joy of childhood. But even there, the world wouldn't leave him alone. The media labeled him crazy, and rightly so. They ridiculed everything he did, from his pet chimpanzee balloons to his love of amusement parks. It didn't matter if these things brought him happiness. To the rest of the world, they were just evidence that he was losing touch with reality, and the entertainer, consciously or not, played on that narrative, blurring the line between his true self and the persona the media portrayed him as. Neverland Ranch was both a dream and a nightmare for the performer. Built in the late 1980s, it was supposed to be a haven where he could relive his lost childhood. Inspired by Peter Pan, it represented everything the star felt he had missed out on: freedom, innocence, and fun. He invited children, families, and poor children to enjoy the rides and zoo. It was his way of giving back, of making others happy. But as the 1990s wore on, word of Neverland began to spread. In 1993, the first child abuse allegations surfaced, and Neverland became the center of controversy. What had once seemed like a miraculous escape now looked suspect. The media had a field day. His relationships with the boys became the focus, and his sleepovers at Neverland were painted in the worst possible light. He defended himself, claiming he was innocent, that he just wanted to give children a place to feel loved and safe. But the damage was done. He settled the case out of court in 1993, but the world never looked at him the same way again. In 2005, the allegations returned, and this time the musician had to go to trial. It was a spectacle. Former employees spoke out against him, others defended him, and the world watched his life unfold. He was acquitted, but his image was shattered. Neverland, once filled with joy, was empty. The rides were dismantled. The animals were gone. And by the time of his death in 2009, Neverland was a shell of its former self. To some, Neverland was a testament to his innocence, a symbol of the childlike joy he had always wanted to experience. For others, it was a place filled with dark secrets. The artist's complex, conflicted nature was reflected in Neverland, and it became a part of his story that people still debate to this day. His relationship with the media was a constant source of pain. They called him Wacko Jacko in the 1980s, and that label followed him for years. The media portrayed him as strange, turning every eccentricity into something sinister. They wrote stories based on rumors like the one about him sleeping in an oxygen chamber to stay young. He later said many of these stories were exaggerated or completely fabricated. But by then it didn't matter. The press knew that strange stories about the pop star sold newspapers, and they pushed that image as far as they could. This treatment took its toll on him. The media reduced him to a caricature, stripped him of his humanity. They ignored his talents and accomplishments in favor of sensationalist headlines. He was a brilliant performer, but to many he was just a spectacle. And for years, icons seemed to accept that bad press was still press, and perhaps it was better to be left alone. But by the early 2000s, the weight of it all had become overwhelming. The tabloids had created a version of him that many could not separate from reality. To some, he was a misunderstood and unfairly targeted artist. To others, he was a joke. Even those close to him did not always know what was fact and what was tabloid fiction. The constant scrutiny made him wary and paranoid. He often said the press was out to destroy him, and interviews revealed a man who was careful with his words, always afraid of giving them more ammunition. His relationships were another part of his life that everyone wanted to know about. His first marriage to Lisa Marie Presley in 1994 was a shock. Here was the king of pop marrying the daughter of the king of rock and roll. The marriage was almost too perfect, but the media questioned the authenticity of the marriage, calling it a publicity stunt to improve his image. After the 1993 allegations, Lisa Marie defended their relationship, saying it was based on love. But the constant public attention took its toll, and they divorced in 1996. Michael's search for love and family added new challenges to his life: fatherhood, finances, and an eventual comeback. That same year, Michael Jackson married Debbie Rowe, a nurse who had worked for his dermatologist. Their relationship seemed more practical than romantic. Debbie bore the artist's two children, Prince and Paris. Critics have suggested the marriage was purely for the sake of children, but those who knew the pop star said he was a devoted father despite the unconventional relationship. His third child, Blanket, was born in 2002, and the identity of his mother has never been revealed, adding to the artist's already complicated personal life. Many people find the artist's parenting style strange. He often covers his children's faces when he goes out to protect them from paparazzi. To the world, it's just another example of his eccentricity. But to the musician, it's a way to keep his children safe from the scrutiny that has followed him throughout his life. Despite his efforts, his children grew up in the shadow of his fame. After his death, Paris became more open about her father and the struggles they faced as a family. The icon's relationships extended to his family, especially his siblings. The Jackson family had a complex relationship, both loving and strained. He often spoke well of his sister Janet, but there were rumors of discord and conflict. Being the most famous member of an already famous family came with its own challenges, and the superstar's need for independence clashed with his family's expectations. While the legendary entertainer tried to maintain a normal personal life, his financial troubles became increasingly unbearable. He made hundreds of millions of dollars from his music tours and merchandise, but by the early 2000s he was deep in debt. Neverland Ranch, the crown jewel of his spending, cost him millions to maintain. It wasn't just a house. It was a full-blown amusement park, complete with rides, animals, and staff. Keeping all the parks running was draining his finances. The entertainer's spending habits were notorious. He didn't just buy the necessities, he bought whatever he wanted, and he wanted a lot. His shopping sprees became famous, and he spent lavishly on art furniture and collectibles. His purchase of the famous ATV music catalog, including the rights to Beatles songs, was a smart business move, but it wasn't enough to save him from bankruptcy. He used his music catalog as collateral for loans, and by the time of his death, he owed nearly $500 million. The artist's financial troubles came to a head in 2008 when his Neverland home was foreclosed on. He managed to transfer ownership to a holding company to avoid losing everything, but the future was near. He needed a comeback, and the This Is It tour was supposed to be it. 50 shows in London were planned, and it was supposed to be his return to the spotlight, a chance to clear his debts and remind everyone of his talent. But his health was failing, and the pressure was on. He wanted to prove himself, but the demands were too great, and in the end, he never got the chance. The pop legend died in June 2009, and the world mourned. His sudden death exposed his financial struggles, but it also sparked renewed interest in his music. The same world that had once crushed him now celebrated him. His estate, once in shambles, began to recover as his music memorabilia and brand brought in millions of dollars. In his later years, the star was a man struggling to keep it all together. He was isolated, lost in his faith, and battling health issues that left him frail. He became increasingly dependent on prescription drugs, and those close to him knew he was in a fragile state. Despite his best efforts to continue creating and planning for his comeback, the burdens of his life were too great. The king of pop's money is still a big deal in 2025. But let's be real, it's a combination of genius and people trying to squeeze every dollar they can out of his name. The music icon is still making millions of dollars years after his death, and it's not just because his music is still cool. His legacy has turned his fame into a full-blown business, and there's a lot going on behind the scenes to keep those dollars rolling in. First of all, his old songs are like moneymakers. They're classics, and they're still played, streamed, and bought. Legacy continues to release special editions of his albums, making them deluxe or adding some unreleased tracks to get fans excited again. People love anything new from an artist, and that means more money from sales and streaming. Basically, every time you listen to Thriller or Billie Jean, someone is making money off of it, but they're not just relying on the old stuff. By 2025, the legacy will likely be making money from all sorts of collaborations. You know how brands love a famous face? Well, their image is still iconic, so it's plastered on merchandise, maybe even in ads or shows. There are always some big brands that want to cash in on his cool factor, and people still buy anything with his name on it. Plus, they could be jumping on the whole NFT thing. People really like these digital collectibles, and the estate could definitely get in on that game selling unique digital moments like iconic dance moves or concert clips. It's all about keeping up with trends, and digital content is where the money is these days. Imagine buying your own digital moonwalk. That's probably what they're betting on. The family also likes to play up his philanthropic side, which isn't just about being nice. It's a way to keep his image bright and positive. Sure, he did a lot of charity work while he was alive, but continuing those efforts also helped people relate to him, which meant more people buying his stuff. The life of this performer was complicated. He was a musical genius, an artist who changed the face of pop music forever. His influence is undeniable. Artists of all genres have cited him as an inspiration, and his impact is still felt in music, dance, and culture today. But his life was also marked by scandal, legal battles, and questions that may never have clear answers. The entertainer was a man who wanted to spread joy, but often couldn't find joy himself. He was a legend who became a prisoner of his own fame. In the end, perhaps his greatest gift wasn't just his music or his incredible performances. Perhaps it is a reminder that even the biggest stars are flawed, complex human beings capable of both greatness and mistakes. The king of pop is finally back. Michael's life was never normal. He grew up under the tight grip of his father, Joe Jackson. Joe was no joke. He used a belt to keep things in order, which meant that Michael's childhood was a mix of strict discipline and the warmth of his mother, Catherine. Not exactly the classic happy family story. And now, years later, after all the fame, the scandals, the supposed sightings, here we are again trying to piece together whether this strange encounter was a hoax or something more. Michael's beginnings were not easy. His father, a strict man who believed in discipline above all else, was at odds with his mother's kindness. Catherine wanted to be a country singer, but ended up working at Sears, doing everything she could to make her children's dreams come true. One day, Michael even received a mysterious letter. There was something about the secrets in his past. It was like a movie plot, but real life. Could all those years of following strict rules, a famous childhood, and hidden secrets somehow bring us here today to see him again? Michael wasn't born famous. He worked hard starting in the mid-60s when he joined his brothers in a group that would become the Jackson 5. Imagine little Michael as a kid singing My Girl and dancing his heart out at local talent shows. This was the start of something big. Music was more than a hobby. It became his escape, his serious career. But fame came with sacrifice. From 1966 to 1968, the Jackson 5 toured what people called the Chitlin Circuit. It wasn't flashy, it was rough, long hours, but it honed them. In 1967, they had their big moment at the Apollo Theater in Harlem, winning an amateur competition. The win put them on a path straight to the top, and by 1970, they were releasing hit after hit with Motown Records. The hits kept coming, and Michael's star kept rising. By the early 70s, he had become more than just a member of the Jackson 5. He was the star. His solo career took off with hits like Ben. Yes, the one about the mouse, making it clear that he was more than just a pop star. He was different. He kept pushing, kept experimenting. Who can forget the robot dance he did in Soul Train and Dancing Machine? It wasn't just a dance. It was a generation-defining moment, but fame had its downsides. Motown's tight control began to feel like a trap, and in 1975, the group left Motown and joined Epic Records, renaming themselves the Jacksons. Michael began to come into his own writing songs like Shake Your Body Down to the Ground. His move to New York City in 1977 to work for The Wiz was another pivotal moment. Meeting Quincy Jones on that project changed everything for him musically. By the late 70s, Michael had changed direction. His 1979 album Off the Wall was a gamer. It was more than just music. It was a statement. He had broken free from his teen idol image and become a global phenomenon. The album sold over 20 million copies worldwide. And Michael wasn't satisfied. He wanted more, and he knew he could get it. He secured the highest royalty rates in the industry, a move that spoke volumes about his ambition. Then there's Thriller. It's almost impossible to talk about pop culture without mentioning Thriller. The iconic music, the red jacket, the single white glove, it all became larger than life. The album has sold around 70 million copies, making it the best-selling album of all time. Michael was a perfectionist and worked tirelessly to create something that was not only good, but legendary. He knew how to command attention, how to make people watch and listen. And with his moonwalk at the Motown 25th anniversary celebration in 1983, he didn't just perform, he made a cultural mark. Even with all his success, Michael was always surrounded by rumors. Rumors about his personal life, his changing appearance, his relationships. People talked about his skin lightening, speculating whether it was a choice. In 1983, his dermatologist confirmed it was vitiligo, but by then the media had spun the story. Michael insisted he wasn't trying to change who he was, just dealing with a medical condition. But the whispers persisted. His creative genius, however, never stopped. The 1980s were filled with success, controversy, and change. He collaborated with big names like Freddie Mercury, worked on iconic tracks like We Are the World, and continued to make seemingly untouchable records. He bought the ATV Music publishing catalog in 1985, which included Beatles songs, cementing his influence in the music industry, not just as an artist but as a powerful business figure. And then there was Neverland, the tomb, the 700-acre estate he turned into his own private wonderland. It was both a symbol of his success and a reflection of his need to escape the harsh realities of fame. The king of pop lived in a fairy tale of his own making, but the real world kept knocking on his door with accusations and scandals lurking in the background. Michael was a cultural icon. His nose appeared smaller, his skin lighter, and his overall appearance more refined. In his 1988 autobiography, Moonwalk, he admitted to having 2 nose jobs, but rumors suggested there was more to it than that. His skin condition, albinism, was widely misunderstood and became the subject of endless speculation. People questioned whether he was trying to change his identity, but Michael always maintained that he was simply dealing with a medical condition. The pressures of fame took their toll. Michael was constantly in the spotlight, and it seemed every aspect of his life was open to public debate. He found solace in his work, pouring all his energy into creating and performing. In 1988, he released his autobiography Moonwalk, giving fans a glimpse into his world. He talked about his childhood, his struggles, and his passion for music. The book became a bestseller, but it also highlighted the loneliness that came with his fame. Michael's desire to create a place where he could escape led to the creation of Neverland Ranch. It was a sprawling estate with amusement rides, a zoo, and a movie theater. For Michael, Neverland was a refuge where he could relive the childhood he felt he never had. But even in his private paradise, controversy arose. The ranch became the focus of accusations that would haunt him for the rest of his life. In 1991, Michael released Dangerous, another groundbreaking album that blended pop rock and new jack swing. The album was different from his previous work, but it showed Michael always evolving, always pushing the boundaries of pop music. Songs like Black or White and Remember the Time were not just hits, they were cultural events. The Black or White music video, featuring groundbreaking visual effects and a cameo by Macaulay Culkin, became a defining moment of the early 90s. The 90s were a tumultuous time for Michael. His marriage to Lisa Marie Presley in 1994 shocked the world. It seemed like an attempt to show a more normal side of Michael, but the marriage didn't last long, ending in divorce after less than 2 years. Soon after, Michael married Debbie Rowe, a nurse who had worked for his dermatologist. They had 2 children together, Prince and Paris. Michael's desire to be a father was clear, and he often spoke of how much his children meant to him. But his fatherly happiness was overshadowed by allegations of child abuse that surfaced in the early 1990s. In 1993, Michael was charged with sexually assaulting a 13-year-old boy. The case was settled out of court, but his reputation was damaged. The media frenzy was relentless, and Michael's image was severely damaged. He maintained his innocence, and his fans supported him, but the accusations would follow him for the rest of his life. Despite the challenges, Michael continued to create. In 1995, he released History Past, Present, and Future Book 1, a double album that combined his greatest hits with new material. The album was deeply personal, with songs like Scream and They Don't Care About Us reflecting his frustration with the media and the accusations against him. The album was a commercial success, selling over 20 million copies worldwide, but it also showed a darker, more introspective side to Michael. The late 90s and early 2000s were marked by more controversy and more music. Michael's third child, Blanket, was born in 2002, and Michael's love for his children was clear. He often spoke of wanting to give them the childhood he never had, but his parenting style was criticized, especially after the infamous 2002 incident, where he hung a blanket from a Berlin hotel balcony. The incident was widely criticized, and Michael later apologized, calling it a terrible mistake. In 2003, Michael faced another major challenge when he was again charged with child molestation. The case went to trial in 2005, and the media circus that followed was unlike anything the world had ever seen. The trial was grueling, and Michael's health was clearly deteriorating throughout the proceedings. In June 2005, he was acquitted of all charges, but the damage to his reputation was irreparable. The King of Pop was vindicated in court, but public perception of him was forever changed. After the trial, Michael withdrew from the public eye. He spent time in Bahrain trying to escape the constant scrutiny. He was reportedly working on new music, but his plans remained unclear. In 2009, Michael announced This Is It, a series of 50 concerts in London that were supposed to be his comeback. Fans were thrilled, and tickets sold out almost immediately. It seemed like Michael was ready to reclaim his throne, but the world would never see those shows. On June 25, 2009, Michael Jackson died of acute propofol and benzodiazepine intoxication at his home in Los Angeles. The news shocked the world. The King of Pop was gone, and an outpouring of grief followed. Fans gathered outside his home at Neverland and around the world to mourn the loss of a legend. Michael's death was declared a homicide, and his personal physician, Dr. Conrad Murray, was convicted of involuntary manslaughter. The trial revealed the extent of Michael's dependence on prescription drugs, a tragic consequence of his relentless pursuit of perfection and the pressures of fame. His death marked the end of an era, but it also cemented his status as a cultural icon whose influence will never fade. In the years since his death, Michael's legacy has been both celebrated and scrutinized. His music continues to inspire new generations of artists, and his impact on popular culture is undeniable. The posthumous releases of Michael in 2010 and Escape in 2014 gave fans a glimpse into the music he was working on before his death. His legacy continues to release material, ensuring that his music remains a part of the cultural conversation. However, the allegations against him have not been forgotten. The 2019 documentary Leaving Neverland brought renewed attention to the abuse allegations as two men came forward to share their stories. The documentary has divided opinion, with some believing the allegations and others defending Michael's innocence. The controversy surrounding his legacy continues, but so does his music. Let's explore some of the craziest theories out there. Spoiler alert, none of them involve just practice and passion, cloning the king of pop. Now this one sounds straight out of a sci-fi movie. Michael Jackson, obsessed with staying young, is said to have attempted to clone himself. The idea was to help him avoid death and all the troubles that came with his fame. Michael C. Luckman, a guy from the New York Alien Research Center, even claimed that Michael had secretly stored his DNA for future cloning projects. Some fans have suggested that his altered appearance was due to him experimenting with cloning, possibly even experimenting on himself, or that a double had replaced him long before his death. And if that wasn't enough, there are those who believe that Michael faked his death so that a clone could carry on his legacy while he finally lived in peace. Away from the public eye, random sightings of Michael in remote locations only add to this bizarre theory. Michael had money problems, big ones. At one point, he was $400 million in debt, with creditors breathing down his neck and Neverland slipping through his fingers. Some people think that Michael did the only thing that made sense. He faked his own death. According to this theory, his death was a clever way to make money, clear his debts, and disappear. Look at what happened right after his album sales skyrocketed. His old songs shot back up the charts, and Michael Jackson merchandise suddenly started popping up everywhere again. If anything, his death may have been the most profitable move he ever made. Some say he's relaxing somewhere in Mexico, living a quiet life away from it all. And every time a blurry photo of someone who looks like Michael pops up, people are convinced it's really him hiding in plain sight. You've heard it all before. The Illuminati, the secret society that supposedly runs the world, controlling governments, celebrities, and maybe even your local supermarket. Some believe that Michael made a deal with them to achieve his insane level of fame. It is said that they pulled strings to make him a superstar. But as he grew older, Michael is said to have decided not to dance to their tunes anymore. That is when things got messy. Fans claim that Michael began to include secret messages in his songs and album covers to expose the Illuminati's hold over him. Remember the Dangerous album. Some say it was covered in hidden symbols, perhaps a cry for help or a warning about who was really in charge. When Michael started ranting about how record executives were evil and the system was stacked against him, it felt like he was trying to tell us something important. Unfortunately, the theory goes he paid the ultimate price for speaking out, and that's why he died in 2009. Mysteriously, right when he was planning his comeback tour. If you thought the Illuminati was hype, wait until you hear this. Some believe that Michael was part of a secret U.S. government plan called Operation Sedgwick. As predicted, the goal was to control black culture by putting certain celebrities at the forefront, all in a carefully orchestrated manner. Of course, Michael was their golden boy, the innocent child star, who later became the pop icon, who entertained distracted and calmed people. The theory goes on to say that the Reagan administration used Michael's image to manipulate public perception. They didn't just want a superstar. They wanted someone who controlled the narrative. But Michael was not one to keep quiet. Of late, his message began to change. His This Is It tour was supposed to be more than just a concert. It was rumored to be his chance to speak out, to reveal the truth. And as you might expect, he never got that chance. It was a theory that combined international politics with pop culture. In June 2009, just as protests in Iran were heating up over a disputed election, Michael Jackson passed away. Coincidence? Some don't think so. They believe that Michael's death was a convenient way to divert global attention from the turmoil in Iran. After all, the world stopped to mourn, the king of pop, and media coverage of the protests was quickly ignored. It may seem a bit far-fetched, but believers say the timing was perfect. Michael's passing dominated headlines while the struggles in Iran were yesterday's news. The theory points to Michael's powerful influence. Even his influence could serve as a political smokescreen. Michael was paranoid, or perhaps he had good reason to be. He often said that people wanted to harm him and his daughter Paris Jackson, and even claimed that her father did too. Michael implied that he knew too much, and that was why he feared for his life. According to this theory, Michael had discovered some dark secret either about the entertainment industry or about powerful people, and that made him a target. Fans believe his songs carry messages about shady industry dealings. The lyrics in They Don't Care About Us are often cited as evidence that Michael was trying to expose something. His sudden and suspicious death is seen by some as an attempt by these powerful enemies to silence him before he could reveal their secrets to the world. And that's the dramatic journey to explore the mystery of Michael Jackson with the shocking statement, "I faked everything, and now I've revealed why." We hope you had a great time digging into this story with us. What do you think? Is this true or just a bold hypothesis? Leave your opinion in the comment section, hit like if you love this video, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Turn on the notification bell so you don't miss the next exciting content. See you in the next video. Welcome to our channel. Get ready, because today's revelations will leave you speechless. Marla Maples, yes, you heard that right, has finally spoken out about her past with President Donald Trump, and what she reveals will shock you. For years, she has kept silent, but now she's had enough of staying quiet. So why is she speaking out now, and exactly what is she about to disclose? Stay tuned, because we're about to break it all down. Before becoming one of the most famous women of the 90s, Marla Maples was just a small-town girl from Georgia with big dreams. She was beautiful, ambitious, and had that undeniable something that made her stand out. It wasn't long before she found her way into the spotlight, first as a model, then later as an actress. But it wasn't just her talent and looks that had the media buzzing. It was who she was rubbing shoulders with. Are you curious about the story behind these high-profile encounters? Leave a comment with the number 1 and join us as we uncover the fascinating secrets behind Marla's surprising journey. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the next exciting video. When Marla first met Donald Trump in the late 80s, he was already a huge figure. He was a real estate mogul, a billionaire, and frankly, the prince of the tabloids. At the time, he was married to Ivana Trump, and their famous relationship seemed solid until it wasn't. Suddenly, rumors started swirling about an enigmatic woman, and before long, the whole world knew that the woman in question was none other than Marla Maples. You probably remember this headline, right? And if you don't worry, we're diving deep into it in this video, because this wasn't just gossip, it was a full-blown scandal that rocked New York's high society. In just one night, Marla went from a rising star to one of the most talked-about women in America. It was chaotic, messy, and exactly the kind of drama the tabloids love. But here's the twist. While the public only saw one side of their relationship, Marla is now quietly revealing that there was so much more going on behind the scenes. Things she's never talked about until now. So what will she reveal after all these years? We're about to find out. Get your popcorn ready because things are about to get intense. The New York tabloids of the late 80s were a city where power met glamour, where headlines were made in the sparkling corners of Manhattan society, and right at the center of it all was Donald Trump. He was a real estate mogul, a tabloid star, and at the time, the husband of Ivana Trump, a woman just as powerful as he was. But then came Marla Maples, a beautiful girl from the South with big dreams, and what happened next was a passionate romance that sparked one of the biggest gossip storms of the time. Trump was already a household name, famous for his extravagant lifestyle, gold-plated buildings, and a marriage that was plastered on every glossy magazine cover. Ivana Trump, his wife, was sharp, stylish, and also a partner in building the Trump empire. But as history has shown, power and loyalty don't always go hand in hand. Somewhere in the glamorous maze of power players and A-list stars, Marla Maples stepped into Donald Trump's life. A beauty from Georgia with looks, charm, and ambition, enough to carve out a place for herself in the entertainment world. By the late 80s, she was a model actress and most notably the one who caught the eye of a billionaire. How Marla and Donald met has been told in millions of different ways depending on who's telling the story. Some say they met at a charity event, others believe it was on Madison Avenue, and there are even rumors that she caught his eye while he was in Aspen. Whatever the truth may be, one thing's for sure: sparks flew, and clearly they flew fast. However, what made things complicated was that before Donald Trump and Marla Maples became the prince and queen of the tabloids, their affair was simply a tantalizing secret whispered in high society. At that time, the New York Post, National Enquirer, Daily News, and nearly all the tabloid magazines thrived on Trump's scandals, and this one truly set everything ablaze. As rumors of his affair with Marla began to swirl, the paparazzi started trailing their every move, eager to catch a moment that would confirm the scandal. But before we dive deeper, let's take a moment to talk about Ivana. If anyone thought she would just sit back and watch, they clearly didn't understand her. Ivana wasn't the type to fade into the background. She was sharp, sophisticated, and ready to fight, and believe me, she did. The confrontation that followed became legendary. Pure, unfiltered drama unfolded when Ivana Trump and Marla Maples faced off. The stories of a blonde bombshell gracing magazine covers sent shockwaves through the media. Was she dating Trump? Or was it just another tabloid rumor Ivana wasn't the type to sit back and pretend she didn't know? She knew, and everything came to a head in December 1989 at the Aspen, Colorado ski resort. The Trump family was on its annual ski vacation, but this time there was a special guest, and it was none other than Marla Maples. Depending on which source you choose to believe, Ivana and Marla had a tense face-off on the slopes. However, Ivana revealed in her memoir, Raising Trump, that Maples approached her and said, "I'm Marla, and I love your husband. What about you?" Ivana, slightly stunned, responded, "Go away. I love my husband." Yes, this was a moment straight out of a soap opera, though some reports suggest the encounter unfolded differently. Some say Ivana confronted Marla, demanding to know what was going on between her and her husband. Marla apparently didn't deny anything. In fact, some reports claim she calmly replied, "I love him, and if he's with me, he'll be happier." Wow, talk about drama. You'll definitely be gasping after hearing these revelations, because today's conversation is packed with shocks. Marla Maples. Yes, she's finally speaking out about her past with President Donald Trump, and what she reveals will blow your mind. For years, she kept silent, but now she's had enough and is ready to tell the truth. So why did she choose this moment to spill everything, and exactly what will be revealed? Get ready, because we're about to uncover it all. Before becoming one of the most talked-about women of the 90s, Marla Maples was just a Southern girl from Georgia with big dreams. She was beautiful, ambitious, and had that something that made everyone take notice. It didn't take long before she found her way into the entertainment world, starting as a model and later transitioning to acting. But it wasn't just her talent and looks that caught the media's attention, it was who she was associating with. When Marla met Donald Trump in the late 80s, he was already a major figure in society. A real estate mogul, a billionaire, and undeniably a tabloid celebrity. At the time, he was married to Ivana Trump, and their relationship was considered rock solid until secrets began to surface. Suddenly, rumors started swirling about a mysterious woman, and before long, the entire world knew that woman was Marla Maples. And do you remember that headline? If not, don't worry. We're diving deep into this story in this video, because this wasn't just celebrity gossip, it was a scandal that rocked New York's high society. In just one night, Marla went from a rising star to one of the most talked about women in America. This is truly a story that caused a storm, chaotic, and filled with the kind of drama that the press loves. But here's the twist: while the public only saw one version of their relationship, Marla is now revealing that behind all of that, there's much more to the story, things she's never shared until now. So what will she reveal after all these years? Get ready, because what's coming next will be truly surprising. Marla Maples, quote, "I have the best feeling ever." A moment that transformed Marla Maples from the other woman into a name everyone was talking about. The first thing was how the media painted her as the mysterious Southern beauty who captured the attention of one of New York's most famous playboys. Then a headline took this scandal from a troubled situation to a whole new level: the best feeling I've ever had. Just that one sentence alone caused an uproar, turning an already sizzling story into gold for the press. Late-night talk shows featured the, quote, gossip columns, dissected it in detail, and Hollywood elites whispered about it at every party. But here's the interesting part. Did she really say that? Was it truly a statement from Marla, or just a creation from the press to sell more copies? Whatever the truth may be, one thing is certain that, quote, made this story impossible to fade away. It wasn't just a noisy scandal, it became a part of pop culture history. So what happened that led to one of the most infamous quotes ever printed in bold on newspaper pages? The story began during the peak of their love affair, when Maples was allegedly sharing with a close friend, or perhaps a very close friend, about the intense moments she and Trump shared behind closed doors. Not just ordinary passion, but the best kind of passion. Yes, just that one sentence, once it got out, triggered a PR storm, turning everything into a media disaster. Before she could even grasp what was happening, the quote was already published. That headline quickly spread from newsstands to evening broadcasts, and we all know once this juicy story hit the papers, nothing could stop it. So how did Marla and Donald handle the aftermath? Marla didn't give any clear confirmation or denial to address the rumors. Some believe it was a casual remark, meant only for close friends, but shared with the wrong person, while others think the press exaggerated or even completely fabricated things to keep the Trump-Marla-Ivana love triangle scandal alive. Whatever the truth may be, one thing is undeniable: this story wasn't going away anytime soon. Over time, the phrase, "the best feeling I've ever had," has become an integral part of pop culture, a joke, and an unforgettable piece of tabloid history that remains etched in our minds. What do you think about the relationship between Donald Trump and Marla Maples? Was this story really as shocking as the press made it out to be? Leave a comment with the number 2 if you find this story intriguing, or 5 if you have a different perspective. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the channel to keep following more fascinating stories like this. Even years later, in interviews and retrospectives, the question still lingers. Did you really say that Marla spent years trying to move past the scandal? But a headline as explosive as that is impossible to forget. The interesting part here is looking back, the phrase, "the best feeling I've ever had," wasn't just a shock. It was about power-shaping perceptions and how one sentence can create a story, whether true or false. And in an era where tabloid culture thrived on exaggeration, this was pure gold. In the world of celebrity scandals, this may not be the most destructive one. It didn't ruin careers or lead to legal battles, but what it did do was prove once again that in Hollywood and high society, the things you say, whether intentional or not, will always follow you for life. And when those words are about intimacy, well, you're sure to have a place in the gossip history books. And so the legend of the phrase, "the best feeling I've ever had," lives on. Whether it's true or not exaggerated or completely fabricated, one thing is undeniable: it's unforgettable, and in the world of celebrity gossip, isn't that the ultimate goal? The story of Marla Maples and Donald Trump's rise and fall. When Donald Trump and Marla Maples finally married in 1993, it seemed like the culmination of one of the most scandalous love stories of the decade. After years of a love full of scandals, relentless public scrutiny, and their private lives being magnified by the media, the Southern girl turned wife became the spouse of a billionaire. Their fairy tale wedding was truly a grand event, surpassing even the wildest imaginations of their friends. But beneath the glittering surface, their marriage soon faced reality, as expectations, power struggles, and the relentless media scrutiny began to blur the illusion, turning this great love story into yet another public breakup. Before diving into the collapse of their marriage, let's first talk about the wedding. Held at the legendary Plaza Hotel, one of Trump's properties, at the time the event was designed to make a grand impression. The guest list was filled with tycoons, Hollywood stars, and high society influencers, all present to witness a wedding brimming with romance and opulence. Every detail was meticulously planned to showcase luxury, ensuring the world would know that this wasn't just an ordinary wedding, it was a statement. Marla, radiant in a custom Carolina Herrera gown, truly looked like the perfect bride. But under the dazzling lights, whispers began to spread through the crowd. Would this marriage last? Their relationship had started with a scandal, and despite the lavish wedding, there was an undeniable sense that this fairy tale might not have a happy ending. Just a few months after their wedding, Marla Maples and Donald Trump welcomed their beautiful daughter Tiffany Trump into the family. Her name was chosen as a tribute to the iconic luxury retailer Tiffany & Co. located right next to Trump Tower. Tiffany became the light in their family amid the turbulent marriage of her parents. Compared to her half-siblings Ivanka, Donald Jr., and Eric, who were raised in the high society circles of Manhattan under Ivana's watchful eye, Tiffany grew up in a very different environment. Although Tiffany carried the Trump name, she was raised by Marla in California, far removed from the competitive real estate world of New York. Marla, determined to build a life untouched by Donald's shadow, focused on giving Tiffany a more ordinary life, completely contrasting with the Trump family's passion for wealth and extravagance. Marla chose a more spiritual lifestyle, one that embraced art and grounded values, contrasting sharply with Donald's cold, calculated business approach. While Donald remained involved in Tiffany's life, his presence was clearly different from the very public and prominent role he played with his older children. As Tiffany grew, these differences became even more pronounced. Marla, despite struggling to build her own career and space, found her marriage to Donald slowly deteriorating. Though they shared happy moments together, their marriage never felt complete, as the passion that once captivated attention slowly faded under the weight of everyday married life. Trump remained deeply immersed in his business empire, and his desire for public attention never waned, leaving Marla feeling emotionally disconnected and unable to find true companionship in their marriage. Marla longed for stability, an emotional connection, and a marriage built on a solid foundation rather than power and wealth, but that was not the world Donald inhabited. As she tried to carve out her own space in the whirlwind of Trump's world, the tension only grew. Unlike Ivana, an experienced businesswoman who thrived within the Trump empire, Marla didn't want to play the role of a silent figurehead wife. She had her own ambitions, her own identity, and most importantly, she wanted a genuine relationship with her husband, something that, according to insiders, was becoming increasingly out of reach. In public, they still maintained the appearance of normalcy, but behind closed doors, their marriage was falling apart. By the late 90s, the cracks could no longer be hidden. Reports showed that Marla felt lonely and unfulfilled, while Trump, always consumed by his business, showed little interest in salvaging what was left. The separation came in 1999 when they officially announced their split, a decision that no longer came as a surprise, but here's where things got even more interesting. Unlike the messy, drawn-out divorce with Ivana, where millions of dollars were at stake, and every detail was exposed by the media, Trump learned from his past. Before marrying Marla, Trump made sure to protect his assets by requiring a prenuptial agreement which limited her settlement to just $2 million. So unlike the massive sum Ivana received, this was just a tiny fraction of Trump's vast fortune. This was a calculated move, ensuring that this time the divorce wouldn't come with too steep a price. For Marla, their marriage became like a lingering shadow, constantly reminding her of the power imbalance in their relationship. Once the woman at the center of one of the biggest scandals of the decade, Marla ultimately walked away with a small settlement and custody of their daughter. Meanwhile, Trump didn't waste much time moving on with his life, maintaining the public image he had carefully crafted. Looking back, the marriage between him and Marla flared up and then burned out quickly. What had once attracted him couldn't withstand the pressure of reality, and while Marla tried to build a life beyond Trump's influence, she would forever be tied to his larger-than-life story. Just a few years later, Trump would marry Melania, stepping into yet another scandalous relationship fueled by the media. Now Marla Maples is breaking her silence, revealing shocking truths about her marriage to Donald Trump. Marla has always been one of the mysterious figures in Trump's past, often overshadowed by his more famous marriages and political career. But behind closed doors, her perspective on Trump's personality, their turbulent relationship, and their daughter Tiffany Trump paints an intriguing picture of the man we only know through cameras and headlines. Trump's public image has always been that of a larger-than-life charismatic figure, confident and always ready with a memorable quote. But what is he really like when the cameras are off? According to those close to Marla, she witnessed a different side of him when there was no audience. Trump's charm could quickly turn into something darker, with rumors suggesting his temper could flare up and he would easily lose his cool. Marla often felt like she was walking on eggshells around him. This wasn't the Trump we see exploding in front of the crowd on TV. This was a man who demanded control over everything in his life, including his marriage. Even so, Marla was careful not to publicly criticize him. She often spoke about their time together with a sense of longing and reflection, alluding to the struggles without fully exposing them. However, those who followed their relationship in the 90s knew that things weren't as perfect as they appeared. Trump needed dominance not just in business. He wanted everything to go his way always. Marla, coming from a Southern background where warmth and emotional connection were valued, seemed to struggle with the cold, transactional nature of their marriage. Then came the issue of money. Trump's financial empire has always been a controversial topic, as at times he was the king of real estate, but rumors also swirled that he was drowning in debt. Throughout their marriage, Marla had a front-row seat to Trump's financial maneuvers. There was much speculation that she became aware of his tendency to handle finances, boldly leveraging debt and keeping financial matters shrouded in secrecy. Some sources even claim that she witnessed firsthand the financial tactics that later became the focus of legal investigations. But did she truly understand the depth of his business dealings? That's a question only Marla can answer. One of the most heartbreaking aspects of their relationship, according to gossip and speculation, was Trump's relationship with his daughter Tiffany. Unlike his older children, Ivanka, Donald Jr., and Eric, who grew up at the heart of Trump's empire, Tiffany was often kept at a distance. Marla took great pride in raising Tiffany on her own, frequently hinting that Trump was more of an absent father than an actively involved one. There have long been rumors that Marla fought to help Tiffany connect with her father, but Trump's attention was always focused elsewhere, whether on work politics or even maintaining his brand. While Tiffany has never publicly criticized her father, the contrast between his relationship with his older children and Tiffany has always been noticeable. When Trump entered politics, the world saw another version of him, a passionate man, unafraid to express his opinions, seemingly unshaken by criticism. But perhaps Marla knew a different side of him. People often speculate that behind closed doors, Trump had deep insecurities, always needing validation from those around him. Is it possible that the man who projected untouchable confidence was actually deeply concerned about how he was perceived? Marla, having lived with him, must have witnessed those vulnerable moments if they truly existed. In the end, Marla Maples remains one of the few figures from Trump's past who hasn't written a tell-all book or embarked on a media tour to expose him. Yet her silence speaks volumes. Marla Maples knows more about Donald Trump than most people can understand, yet she has chosen to remain silent about most of it. Is her silence born from respect, fear, or simply the desire to build a new life? Only Marla truly knows the reason behind it. What do you think? Could Marla Maples be the one holding the key to revealing truths about Donald Trump that we've never known? Leave a comment and share your thoughts. Don't forget to like this video, share it with your friends, and subscribe to the channel to stay updated on more fascinating stories. Click on the next video on the screen to discover even more exciting content. A morning that seemed peaceful at Buckingham Palace suddenly turned into a moment no one would ever forget. As the first rays of sunlight crept over the ancient towers, the familiar calm of the royal residence was shattered by a haunting sound, the thunderous, furious scream of King Charles himself. No one could have imagined that behind those majestic gates, a storm of anger had been quietly brewing, and now it had finally burst free. No one had time to grasp what was happening. Palace staff froze mid-task, their faces pale with fear. The normally orderly atmosphere was replaced by a heavy, suffocating tension. Royal guards stood still like statues' eyes locked on the source of the outburst, while the entire palace seemed to hold its breath. What could have pushed the usually composed king to such a breaking point? What secrets lie behind the royal walls? Stay with us as we uncover the full truth. And don't forget, leave a 1 in the comments if you empathize with this story, or a 0 if you see it differently. Share your thoughts with us below. Like and subscribe so you won't miss what happens next, where we reveal all the secrets behind this unfolding royal drama. An unprecedented scene shook Buckingham Palace on what was supposed to be a quiet and peaceful morning. Suddenly, King Charles's furious and resentful voice echoed powerfully through the gilded corridors of the palace, piercing every room and shattering the usual calm atmosphere. His words carried deep disappointment, pain, and a long-suppressed rage finally unleashed, causing the nearby servants to halt their tasks, their faces paling and trembling in the sudden tension. The guards stood motionless like statues, their eyes fixed on the source of the outburst, as if the entire palace held its breath in that moment. Everyone sensed the gravity of the situation when they realized that the target of the king's fury was not a court official or an outsider, but Queen Camilla, the wife and companion whom everyone expected the king to protect and cherish. This confrontation not only suffocated the palace air, but also opened a new tense and volatile chapter in their relationship, raising serious questions about the future of the monarchy and the bond between them. According to insider sources that have been leaked, King Charles uncovered a shocking and almost unimaginable truth. A priceless piece of royal jewelry had mysteriously disappeared from the secure vault within the palace. This revelation sent shockwaves through the royal household, triggering an intense investigation. As the inquiry progressed, every lead and piece of evidence began to converge on a single person, Camilla. The very woman whom King Charles had defied centuries of royal tradition to elevate and crown as queen was now cast into the harsh spotlight of suspicion, raising questions and tensions that rippled through the corridors of power. The king's fury was not merely a reaction to the loss of an invaluable family heirloom, but the result of simmering doubts and long-standing disappointment that had built up within him over many years. These feelings had not been openly expressed, but they quietly existed, gradually eroding his trust and affection for those around him, especially within the family. The loss of the royal jewel was the final straw, causing all the long-held feelings of disappointment and doubt to erupt into an uncontrollable fury. It was not merely a material loss, but a blow to the honor and prestige of the royal family, something the king could not tolerate. What truly transpired behind the solid, magnificent walls of the palace, the symbol of England's supreme power and tradition? Was it Camilla who really took the missing royal jewel? If the answer is yes, what was the motive behind such an act? Could it have been a mere accidental oversight? Or is there a more intricate and calculated conspiracy unfolding quietly in the shadows of closed doors? These questions not only spark curiosity, but also raise suspicions about the underlying motives behind the event and whether it could be the beginning of larger upheavals within the royal family. The scandal is rocking the entire nation, raising serious questions about loyalty, power, and the secrets hidden behind the dazzling facade of the Windsor dynasty. The crown may glitter on the outside, but beneath that noble velvet could lie a dark truth few dare to imagine. Did Camilla truly take the ring, and if so, what was her motive? That question is now at the heart of the incident, shaking the entire British royal family. As we delve into the details of the tense confrontation between King Charles III and Queen Camilla at Buckingham Palace, we can't ignore the silent cracks that have formed between them for a long time. Cracks that may now be on the verge of breaking wide open. The story began when Camilla officially took on the role of Queen Consort. Initially, her role was seen by the public and the royal family as a traditional image. The wife standing behind her husband, supporting the king in ceremonial duties and maintaining the image of a devoted spouse. Like previous queens, she primarily carried out symbolic duties, representing the royal family at public events, and striving to uphold the image of a loyal woman supporting the king's position. Although these tasks were important, they were rarely highlighted or emphasized. However, over time, Camilla's role began to change subtly but significantly. She was no longer just a wife standing behind her husband, but gradually became a figure with considerable influence in the internal decisions of the royal family, as well as in foreign affairs. Her image shifted from a silent symbol to that of a woman with a voice and a more active role in significant matters. These changes not only altered the public's perception of her, but also impacted the royal family internally as she demonstrated a strong involvement and influence in important decision-making. Camilla's influence has been steadily increasing. She has started to appear independently at public events and participate in interviews without prior approval from King Charles or senior palace advisors. Some observers have pointed out that she is gradually breaking away from the traditional mold of a spouse. Historically, this role has been built around close coordination with the monarch, where the spouse typically plays a supportive role and maintains the image of the royal family. However, Camilla seems to be shifting this approach, demonstrating a clear autonomy and actively engaging in public decisions and activities. Camilla's growing autonomy has raised concerns among some within the royal family. This change not only erodes long-established customs and protocols, but also raises the question of whether Camilla is simply seeking her own voice, or if she is quietly preparing for a much more powerful position. These questions not only spark doubts about her future in the royal family, but also heighten tensions about her role moving forward as the power dynamics within the monarchy may be set to shift. An official change in her status sent shockwaves throughout the royal family and beyond. The royal website, traditionally a reflection of the monarchy's hierarchy and roles, quietly updated Camilla's title from Queen Consort to simply Queen. At first glance, this might seem like a subtle shift or a mere linguistic adjustment, but in the delicate world of royal protocol, this seemingly minor alteration carried significant implications. The adjustment was not without controversy. Reports from the media indicate that the change in Camilla's title has faced opposition from certain individuals, most notably King Charles himself. According to sources close to the royal family, while Charles is believed to support Camilla's increasingly prominent role in public life and royal duties, he was not entirely comfortable with the alteration of her official title. His hesitation partly stems from the fact that the title Queen Consort had been formally declared and publicly wished for Camilla by his late mother, Queen Elizabeth II. Adhering to the late Queen's wishes has long been regarded as a sacred and traditional obligation within the British royal family. Nevertheless, despite Queen Elizabeth II's clear directive, it appears that Charles ultimately gave reluctant approval for Camilla to be referred to simply and formally as Queen. This change, though seemingly minor in wording, carries deep symbolic significance as it reflects a shift in power and a redefinition of the monarchy's image in the public eye. For some, the decision is even seen as going against the late Queen's explicit intention, sparking controversy over whether royal tradition is being eroded in the face of modernization. The matter continues to raise questions about Camilla's true role and the complex balance between duty title and official recognition, both within the royal institution and among the public. Camilla's growing autonomy wasn't limited to ceremonial duties. She began making decisions that impacted the monarchy's daily operations, particularly concerning the management of King Charles's schedule and public engagements. Reports indicate Camilla independently canceled several of the king's scheduled appointments, citing that they didn't align with her personal interests or the direction she felt the monarchy should take. These actions were seen as signs of increasing self-assurance and demonstrated she was no longer a passive figure. When questioned about her decisions by royal aides and staff, Camilla responded candidly and unapologetically. She was reportedly heard to say, "It wouldn't do him any good. The Queen knows best." This statement clearly showcased her belief in her personal judgment and her expanding role within the monarchy. To some, this was necessary confidence. To others, it was a sign of overstepping boundaries. Camilla began making decisions without consulting King Charles. One of the actions widely considered a culmination point was her agreement to participate in an interview without his prior knowledge. This interview completely blindsided Charles and was a shocking move for the entire royal family. Camilla chose to appear in a private yet insightful conversation, and what she shared within it forever changed the trajectory of her role within the royal institution. The content of the interview was not only shocking, but utterly controversial. Camilla publicly discussed her vision for the future of the monarchy and revealed personal plans that had never before been shared publicly. More importantly, these plans had also never been discussed with King Charles. Camilla described the interview as a candid and authentic look into her personal views, but it quickly became the focal point of tension and suspicion as she spoke about strategies and initiatives she envisioned for the royal family. What shocked many close to the crown was Camilla's revelation of details about plans Charles had shared privately with her under the assumption they would be kept in absolute confidence. This betrayal deeply hurt Charles, as he had always seen Camilla as his most trusted confidant. Hearing private conversations exposed in the media felt like a blow to his trust. What should have only been behind-the-scenes strategic discussions about the monarchy's future now became public fodder. Camilla's openness about confidential information not only humiliated Charles, but also made him feel utterly betrayed, not just by his wife, but by the person he trusted more than anyone. For Charles, this betrayal was the last straw. He had long valued discretion and privacy, and the public exposure of his most intimate conversations was beyond his tolerance. For years he had been patient with the complexities of his marriage, but this action forced him to confront a painful truth: the rift between him and Camilla had become too wide to continue ignoring. Between Charles and Camilla, an undeniable rift has formed. It is time to confront her directly and hold her accountable for her actions. The future of their relationship and the monarchy itself hangs in the balance. One morning after Camilla's shocking interview, tension filled Buckingham Palace. Camilla was notably absent the previous evening, an unusual occurrence, especially amid the ongoing crisis. As hours passed, Charles grew visibly agitated. He was a man under immense pressure. Close sources described him pacing like a lost soul throughout the royal residence, breaking the usual calm that defines the palace. Witnesses could sense that something deeply troubling was unfolding. Upon learning the content of Camilla's interview, Charles demanded her immediate return to the palace. Yet he received no response from his wife. The situation escalated rapidly. The king was seen wandering the palace grounds, either waiting for her return or sending out a stream of frustrated messages. His anguish was palpable. This was no longer the composed king the public knew, but a man betrayed and isolated, finding no comfort from the partner he once trusted completely. When Camilla finally arrived at the palace the next morning, her demeanor was nothing short of cold and disdainful. She reportedly walked past staff with her head held high, pointedly ignoring their greetings. The entire space was filled with an anxious silence as she proceeded to the meeting room where Charles awaited. Camilla entered with an unsettling confidence, her gaze steely, her stride straight and rigid. The moment she crossed the threshold, one could distinctly feel a storm brewing. Charles stood in the center of the room, his eyes fixed on her. His face was a mask filled with barely suppressed fury. As their gazes met, he erupted. His voice trembling, he stated that the monarchy was not a stage for personal agendas. He emphasized that Camilla could not speak indiscriminately without considering the consequences. But the climax came when he questioned her loyalty, hinting at the betrayal he felt from her. Camilla showed no signs of remorse. Quite the opposite. She appeared more assured than ever. In the face of scrutiny, she stood tall and composed, her posture firm and her gaze steady. There was no hesitation in her voice, as she declared that she saw nothing wrong with her actions. To her, she had simply exercised her right. The right, she believed, came with her position as queen. She firmly emphasized that she was indeed the queen, and as such, she had every right to express her thoughts openly without apology or justification. This assertion, delivered with such certainty, struck a harsh and unexpected chord. To Charles, it felt like a stinging rebuke, not just of his authority, but of the delicate balance he had tried to maintain between public tradition and private emotion. However, the pain he felt did not stem solely from her bold words spoken in public. What truly cut deeper was something far more intimate and unspoken, an emotional undercurrent that had been lingering beneath the surface of their relationship for a long time. It was a truth both of them had quietly avoided, perhaps out of fear, pride, or a desire to keep peace. Now, with Camilla's unapologetic declaration, that long-ignored tension was exposed. The wounds it revealed were not fresh, but old and unresolved, quietly accumulating beneath years of compromise and royal duty. And in that moment, the hurt Charles felt was not just from what had been said, but from what had remained unsaid for far too long. What do you think hurt Charles the most? Camilla's harsh words, or the emotions that have been buried for many years? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to hit like if you find this content interesting, and subscribe to the channel so you won't miss the next dramatic stories. In that moment of peak tension, the king finally could not contain his long, simmering rage. His voice trembled, echoing through the room. He screamed, "You are the one who stole the royal jewels, you stole my ring." His accusation cut through the thick silence like a knife. He looked at Camilla with eyes full of hurt and fury. The answer seemed too clear and too painful. The room fell silent. The ring Charles referred to was no ordinary piece of jewelry. It was the king's personal insignia, a symbol of royal power, authority, and legacy. Losing it, or worse, having it stolen, was a fatal blow not only to him, but to the monarchy itself. King Charles's signet ring is a royal heirloom steeped in history, more than just an accessory. It's a symbol of identity, personal style, and a familial connection spanning generations. First appearing publicly with him in the 1970s, the signet ring became an unmistakable hallmark of his royal attire. Its design and material reflect centuries of tradition. Crafted from Welsh gold weighing approximately 20 grams, the ring adheres to the classic style of royal jewelry, carrying within it both the past and future of the throne. Losing it isn't just losing a treasure. It's losing a piece of the soul of the legacy. King Charles's signet ring is far more than mere jewelry. It's a symbol of royal power and heritage, a sacred heirloom passed down through 3 generations, starting with Prince Andrew of Greece and Denmark, through Prince Philip, and then to Charles himself. Worn on his pinky finger, the ring embodies history, tradition, and a deep intergenerational bond within the royal family. For Charles, the ring represents the continuity between past and present, while for Prince William, the future heir to the throne, it's a tangible and spiritual link to his father. The loss of the ring isn't just a material loss. It's a profound emotional and symbolic blow, shaking the very foundations of the royal legacy. Immediately following the magnificent coronation at Buckingham Palace, a disturbing incident occurred. King Charles's precious signet ring mysteriously vanished. The news spread rapidly, creating an atmosphere of suspicion and tension within the royal family. Charles, usually composed, was deeply shocked this time. He was almost in a state of panic, unable to fathom how such an important item could be lost. The gravity of the event not only affected his personal life, but also shook the royal trust and responsibilities he bore. In the ensuing days, Buckingham Palace became the hub of an intense investigation. Palace staff and security teams searched every nook and cranny, meticulously looking for the ring. Despite their efforts, the search yielded no results, and the pressure mounted. In closed-door meetings, rumors began to circulate. Some believed the ring might have been sold or stolen by a royal family member or insider who had access to the king's private quarters. The narrative became even more dramatic, with suspicions that someone was exploiting the situation for personal gain. Amidst this crisis, one person's indifference stunned many Queen Camilla. While Charles was consumed by grief and worry, she remained composed, continuing her daily duties and making significant decisions without showing any concern or acknowledging the severity of the ring's disappearance. This cold demeanor fueled suspicions and tension between them like a smoldering fire threatening to ignite at any moment. When Charles grasped the gravity of the situation and began to suspect Camilla's involvement, the tension in the palace reached its breaking point. He couldn't endure the feeling of betrayal from his life partner, the one he had trusted most. Camilla's coldness and disdain during those days were like daggers piercing the king's heart. Every encounter between them was filled with suffocating silence, tension, and unspoken accusations. The rift between them could no longer be hidden, signaling an inevitable confrontation and unforeseen consequences for both their personal relationship and the monarchy. While Charles grappled with the pain of losing his ring, a sacred symbol of royal heritage, Camilla seemed to be forging ahead with her own agenda. She disregarded the cost to her husband, making bold, unilateral moves in matters of state. For her, the ring's disappearance was merely a minor inconvenience. Camilla continued down her chosen path, unhesitatingly dismissing any worries or potential consequences that could impact their relationship and the monarchy. Everything truly erupted when Camilla's recent interview was released. Initially intended to demonstrate unity and strengthen the monarchy's image, it instead exposed a deep rift. Camilla's words and actions crossed a line, pushing their fragile relationship to its breaking point. Charles, already on the edge due to the missing ring, was now more incensed than ever. The fiery confrontation behind closed doors became inevitable, marking a painful turning point in their relationship. Looking back, the relationship between Charles and Camilla has always been rife with tension, arguments, and hurt. Behind the royal glamour lies a deeply emotional story scrutinized by the public and media for decades. Camilla was often depicted as the villain, the one who broke up Charles's marriage to Princess Diana, becoming the target of relentless public scorn and media criticism. That vilification profoundly wounded her personal life, creating scars that were slow to heal. Not only did she endure the harshness of public scrutiny, but Camilla also felt lonely and betrayed by the very husband she had trusted most. She always hoped Charles would step up to defend her honor and dignity, that he would use his power and influence to counter the wave of attacks. In reality, she frequently felt like an outsider abandoned in a battle beyond her control. The wounds from the past were never truly healed. That resentment and pain simmered like a slow-burning fire within Camilla's heart. Though Charles and Camilla eventually married, the hurt and bitterness from the past persisted like a quiet undercurrent between them. Behind their outwardly harmonious public appearances, many royal observers believe they never truly overcame their deep-seated conflicts. Camilla harbored feelings of abandonment, while Charles carried the guilt and remorse from previous events. These scars were never fully resolved, laying the groundwork for new conflicts. In recent months, their relationship grew even more strained as Camilla's power increased. Rumors of her growing influence circulated within royal circles, causing concern among many. Camilla no longer accepted a secondary role. Instead, she demonstrated independence and assertiveness through significant decisions, often disregarding many traditional protocols. Her candid public interviews, where she openly expressed her views, further fueled speculation about her ambition and preparation for an even more powerful position within the monarchy. These moves were not fully acknowledged by Charles, leading to underlying conflicts and mounting tension. Beyond the controversies surrounding titles or roles within the royal family, Camilla is still seen by many as the woman who played a part in the breakdown of the marriage between Charles and Princess Diana. Even as time has passed, Diana's image remains vividly etched in the hearts of the British public and people around the world. She was not merely a fashion icon or a royal figure, she was the embodiment of kindness, compassion, and grace. The pain she endured during her marriage to Charles only deepened public sympathy for her, elevating her to the status of a beloved figure who seemed to represent the emotional truth behind the palace walls. In that context, no matter how much Camilla tries to present herself differently, it is difficult for her to escape the long shadow cast by Diana's legacy. For this reason, Camilla's increasingly prominent presence in her new role has not only stirred conflicting reactions within the royal family, but has also reignited a wave of complex emotions among the public. To many, seeing Camilla in a position that Diana might have rightfully held is difficult to accept. Their reaction is not just to Camilla as she is today, but to the unresolved memories of a painful past. Her presence, even though now officially recognized, serves as a reminder of what was lost, not only the collapse of a royal marriage, but the enduring image of a woman who left an indelible mark on the soul of a nation. Their story was not one of public conflict or dramatic confrontations. It was a quiet tale of unresolved emotions, missed opportunities, and royal duties that shaped every decision. What began as a love triangle gradually evolved into a lifelong tension. As the years passed, both held firmly to their positions, continuing their roles within the monarchy with silent determination, but never truly side by side, duty over affection. She understood that many within the monarchy and the public held strong opinions about her. Determined not to let the past or others' expectations define her, she slowly and steadily began taking on more royal responsibilities. She immersed herself in charity work, stood by Charles at official events, and learned to move with grace and poise within the royal world. She was there to contribute. However, even with this change, their relationship remained formal. It never evolved into a deep connection. There was a courteous distance between them. At royal events, they were often seen standing near each other, smiling when expected, exchanging words when necessary. But their smiles rarely reached their eyes, and their conversations lacked warmth. To the outside world, they appeared polite. But to the more observant, it was clear that their relationship was more about maintaining appearances than enjoying each other's company. Much of this quiet tension stemmed from the differences in how they viewed their roles. As Camilla grew increasingly prominent and solidified her position within the royal family, King Charles began to feel sidelined like a monarch, overshadowed by his own wife. According to close sources, this created a deep sense of unease within him. Charles didn't want to be seen as a mere supporting figure in the royal narrative. He was determined to reclaim control and his true standing. He wanted to remind the public that he remained the sole head of state, holding the highest authority and responsibility within the British monarchy. One of the most pivotal moments in this struggle to regain power and respect came when Charles demanded the return of a precious pinky ring. This ring was far more than just a piece of jewelry. It symbolized his very soul and was a treasured emblem of his status and authority. Claiming the ring back was a clear statement that despite the changes around him, he was still the leader who could not be overshadowed or replaced in the eyes of the public or within the royal family itself. The demand for the ring's return made the atmosphere inside the palace unbearably tense. Witnesses described it as nothing less than an emotional explosion. Charles, filled with pent-up disappointment and fierce anger, directly accused Camilla of taking the ring he had been desperately searching for. His voice was laden with resentment, urgently demanding the immediate return of his sacred treasure, as if the ring was an inseparable part of him. Camilla remained silent at first, her eyes narrowing as she carefully weighed every word she was about to say, leaving those around her unable to predict her true intentions. Finally, with a cold and defiant tone, she uttered a sentence that seemed to freeze the entire palace. "What belongs to the king is mine." This statement was a powerful declaration, affirming her undeniable claim to power and status in this tense confrontation. Camilla's words landed like a fatal blow, cold and powerful, stunning Charles. Without hesitation, she retrieved the ring from her purse and placed it on the table before him, returning it with ease but loaded with meaning. This scene only ignited Charles's fury further, his frustration boiling over, causing him to explode. "You're done!" He roared, his voice unmistakably conveying pain, betrayal, and indignation. Instead of retorting with words or mirroring his anger, Camilla calmly turned and walked out of the room. Charles could only watch in stunned silence, confusion evident on his face. Those within the royal household who had long observed the strained dynamic between the couple recognized that the rift between them had reached an irreparable point. Their already fragile relationship now seemed to be officially broken. Rumors began to spread about Camilla's true motives behind claiming the heirloom ring. According to close sources, Camilla had long shown a particular interest in the ring, not only because of its royal symbolic value, but also due to its deep personal significance to her. For Camilla, the ring was more than just a symbol of power. It was a way to affirm her increasingly solid position within the monarchy, a tangible sign of recognition and respect she sought to obtain. However, Charles viewed the ring very differently. To him, it was not merely a piece of jewelry or a symbol of authority, but the very soul and identity tied to his deep feelings for his family and his role within the royal family. That is why when Camilla repeatedly demanded to possess the ring, Charles firmly refused. This refusal was not just about protecting a material object, but also about safeguarding the emotional and personal values that the ring represented. Charles's refusal acted as a catalyst, prompting Camilla to take unilateral action and acquire the ring herself. This wasn't an impulsive act, but a tacit declaration of her power and independence. This action crossed the delicate line between authority and trust, shattering the balance in their relationship. The seemingly inanimate ring had now become the catalyst for a fierce emotional explosion, shaking the fragile foundations of the royal family. Currently, Camilla is reportedly on a temporary retreat from royal duties, leaving the palace in an eerie silence. The question isn't just whether she will return, but whether this royal marriage can withstand the unprecedented shock stemming from a small symbol like the ring. The future of the British monarchy stands at a volatile crossroads, and the